Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sports Shorts Daily, presented by LaBerge Casino. TK, Tommy Christ, and Ronnie Rance here with you. TK over at Court Street Cafe in downtown Port Allen. I am at an undisclosed location presented by the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, and we are presented each and every week, every show, by LaBerge Casino, where they were rocking during the Thanksgiving holidays. A lot of great Christmas parties and fun coming up over at LaBerge in the month of December. Go check it out. We're over here in Baton Rouge. All right, so it's I guess there's two Black Mondays, sorta. There's Cyber Monday, but it's also Black Monday for a number of college football coaches. We expect some changes to be made potentially to today. There's been many already, and we'll get into that. Coaches that have been fired or have moved to other places. And then, of course, that'll happen again at the end of the NFL season the day after. If the Saints, Tommy, don't win the division, I fully anticipate the second edition of Black Friday for football coaches will be Dennis Allen, who, if the Saints were in any other division in football besides the NFC South, he might be fired today.
Well, the Carolina Panthers fired their coach this morning, Frank Reich. They're off to a 1-10 start. They're out of it. And you're right, the Saints, that was just painful to watch yesterday. I mean, it was very, very tough. Saints fans are frustrated. Is it Derek Carr? Is it Pete Carmichael? Is it the team? Is it Dennis Allen? I mean, a lot of fingers being pointed and arguably correct that, there's a lot of problems. They're coming off an open date, okay, with an incredibly important game in the NFC South. Their chance to, make a spot in the playoffs. And they just, the 5 field goals, the missed passes by Carr. Ronnie, it's one thing you see the ball off somebody's fingertips once, or, it's just a hair behind the guy. The receivers, they're NFL guys, they still make the catch. But he's missing by 3 and 4 and 5 feet or more with some of these throws. And there was a meme on Twitter with the 2 kids in the backyard. He was this is Derek Carr, and the guy running pass route, and he was missing him by 5 feet. It was funny as could be. But the Saints, man, to do that against the Falcons, your rival. Falcons are a decent team, not great, but no stretch. That just was a terrible effort. There was no intensity. There was no enthusiasm. It just was a total disconnect. And, you got to wonder, you say at the end of the season, they don't make the playoffs, they're going to fire him. Why not do it now? That which is going to happen eventually might as well happen now. And, shake the place up. And, they're not out of the playoff chase. They're not out of the chase in the NFC South. Certainly the loss yesterday hurts, but they get to play the Falcons again. And, in the NFL, we've seen it. Anybody can beat anybody, more so than ever. So, but it was very tough on Saints fans yesterday to watch that. There just was a poor effort. And I guess the buck stops on the head coach. If they went out there and won 48-20 and looked great, hitting on all cylinders, the coach would get some credit. Well, he's got to get the blame now because that was terrible.
Saints are 5-6. Falcons are 5-6. South Falcons are in first place in the division by virtue of winning the first head-to-head and by virtue of their 3-0 against division teams. Saints are 1-2 against division teams. That's not going to bode well if it comes down to some sort of tie situation, because obviously the Saints play the Falcons on the final Sunday of the football season. But if they end up in a tie, then it's going to go by what your record is in the division, and the Saints are trailing that by 2. A couple of things. First off, if you fire Dennis Allen now, the division is such trash that there's a chance that the Saints could still win the division with an interim coach. And then there's going to be this hey, we should keep the interim coach. He won the division and made the playoffs. So I think you just got to ride it out, and then you fire them all at the end of the season. Now, who decided that Derek Carr was worth $60+ million guaranteed and $150 million contract and all that kind of stuff? That person may, and if that's Mickey Loomis, we talk so much about the 06 class. That's a long time ago, Coach. That's almost 20 years ago. What have you done for me lately besides trade up to get Marcus Davenport and and you pass up Lamar Jackson to that draft? And when's the last time they really hit on a draft pick? So, on high draft picks. So I would say that they've got to really seriously look at themselves when this season is over with. And look, they put themselves behind the 8 ball as not only for the reasons I just mentioned. They got the Detroit Lions coming in town, and who knows which Detroit team's going to show up. They're favored this Sunday, but they blew the game to the Packers, who should, I mean, they were never in it. But they can beat anybody. They can obviously lose to anybody. But but on paper, Detroit's a loss. And then, then you've got to go on some sort of run. The Saints have 3 home games in a row. They got an opportunity. They got to win 2 of the 3 at home, at least. The Falcons didn't look like a team with their quarterback that should have won yesterday, but they had playmakers. They had Robinson. They had the big tight end out of Florida. And the Saints were just, a mash unit getting injured and Derek Carr making bad throws. And so with all the injuries at wide receiver, Tommy, and the inconsistent play by Derek Carr, I don't see how this is going to turn around. I don't have any faith in that game yesterday.
Yeah, 3-game homestand. If you're going to turn it around, it happens. Like you said, you win 2 out of those 3, or you bow up and win all 3. But, the Saints defense really went south in the last 6-7 games.
Right.
That's part of the problem. Before the year, we hang the hat on the defense, and, and that's just not being the case anymore. And this Saints team is a mess. And like you said earlier, I mean, because they're in the NFC South, there's still a reasonable chance they would win that division and make the playoffs. Only one team in that division is going to be in the playoffs. Whoever wins, it's in, even if they finish 8-9. So, the Saints really got to figure this out with the 3 games at home. And I know the Lions are coming to town, but like you said, they've been Jekyll and Hyde. Who knows what team? The Lions are a 3.5-point favorite at the moment, coming in at the Dome Sunday. So, man, it's just tough on Saints fans, man. It seems like they deserve better.
If the Saints go 4-3, Tommy, in their last 7 games, or I'm sorry, 3-3 in their last 6 games, they finished at 8-9. I think 8-9 is not going to be good enough. I think they've got to get to 9 wins, which means they got to go 4-2 because of the fact that they've gotten off to such a bad start within the division. And the Falcons are 3-0 against division opponents, and the Saints are 1-2. If they even, like I said, they've got to have the same record, and then it goes to the next tiebreaker. So the Saints got to go 4-2 realistically, because I don't think the Falcons are going to go 4-2. I don't believe into it. So I really believe that they have got to win 2 out of 3, and then fortunately for them, their schedule's weak, and then they can go win another 2 out of 3 down the stretch, and that's what's got to happen. But they've put themselves in an able. Derek Carr's post game was so cringy yesterday in the post game comments that he made to the media, Tommy, on the pick 6 that went 90-something yards for a touchdown. He credited the safety. He was like, well, he was a single high safety. He was never supposed to break to his left. He was always supposed to go to his right. And, I mean, he made a great play. Matter of fact, I congratulated him after the play. Like, what? First off, the throw was terrible. It wasn't going to be to it was behind Shaheed in the first place. It wasn't even to him if you watch the replay. Like, it was just he sailed the throw. The timing was off. But no, it is a single high safety. And granted, he's supposed to go to the right, but you didn't see him. And for him to say that and to just say, hey, sometimes the other guy makes great plays. You think Tom Brady said that? First off, has Tom Brady ever given up a 90-something yard at pick 6? I'm sure he has. He played for 30 years. But do you think Tom Brady would have, hey, man, he made a great play. Congratulations. I told him congratulations. I mean, just the guy is just. And what's that stat that's out there, Tommy? In the last 32 drives by the Saints, they have 2 touchdowns. They've scored 3 touchdowns in 32 drives, 2 of them by Jameis Winston and 1 by Taysom Hill. No touchdowns by Derek Carr.
I mean, for a guy with the years of experience that he has, and somewhat reasonable numbers he put up with the Raiders, I mean, you just can't make that mistake. And I think he just poured gas on the fire when he said that guy made a great play. He's supposed to go left. No, you're a quarterback with all that experience. You're supposed to read and adjust, okay? The great quarterbacks adjust. It's a position of adjustments, and he's obviously not doing it. And then when he does throw the ball, he's not even coming close, like we said. And, the old saying, let your guy get it or nobody get it, should have applied on that 90-plus yard pick 6. I mean, it's just, again, if you're a Saints fan, and Saints fans know their football, you're shaking your head because you know that this is a poor performance, poor effort It's just not there. So okay, you can't change yesterday. You can affect next Sunday. 3-game homestand. The fans are going to show up. You got to make it happen.
The God, it was a killer, man. The Taysom Hill fumble. I mean, Taysom has been playing so well. He was playing so well yesterday. The Saints are on the poised right there, to trailing by 2 to go score a touchdown and go up and force the Falcons, with halfway through the fourth quarter to have to go for a touch. And I doubt Taysom Hill said, "Hey, nice job," but I mean, it was the peanut punch, the peanut Tillman punch. I mean, the ball, the DB for the Falcons just punched right on the ball as Taysom Hill's going to the ground. It was a great play by them. I mean, Taysom can't lose that football in that situation. He's been he's been much better this year about not fumbling. And right there, it did him in. I mean, the red zone problems by this team. It's bad enough that they're having to settle for field goals, but they literally had 14 points taken off the board yesterday. From a standpoint of you look like you're going to score a touchdown, pick 6 the other way. That's a 14-point swing, and then you're going in. I mean, you're gashing the Falcons, and Taysom Hill fumbles inside the 10-yard line. I mean, just devastating. And as a lifetime Saints fan, Tommy, you just knew it was gonna play out the way it did. But and then the Saints defense, not that they have an excuse, because we thought they were a top 10 defense, and they're not. We thought if the Saints offense was a 15th ranked offense in the league, the defense would be so good they'd be a playoff team and a division winner, and that doesn't look like it's going to happen that way. But the Saints defense too has just got to be like, I mean, here we are over here battling our ass off. They've got no room for error, because I mean, they're sitting there watching the offense go up and down the field, getting 3 points at best. And there's just no room for error. I mean, they if they give up 20 points, it's over. And it's just got to be tough to play defense right now. It's not a complimentary offense whatsoever. Let's talk a little LSU. That the Tigers got off to a slow start. Tommy, was a little hairy over there in Baton Rouge and Tiger Stadium, but they ended up putting the foot on the throat in the fourth quarter and just absolutely dominated A&M in that fourth quarter and covered the spread for some. If you got the line early in the week, you got the 11.5, like a few of my friends did, then you came out a winner as the Tigers won by 12. But if you waited till later in the week and that line jumped up to 13.5, you were a loser.
The LSU defense is just terrible. Okay, and I suspect there'll be some changes on the defensive staff at some point. And here's a third-string quarterback from A&M looking like an all-conference player. And, he threw some nice balls. I'll give him credit for that. But, LSU did find a way to bow up, and then they turned it over to Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas and Kyron Lacey. And those guys found a way to get it done on senior day and last home game. And, it was special for a lot of reasons. And Jaden Daniels' numbers were not spectacular, but they were solid. And he led his team to a comeback win. It's supposed, that's got to be part of it somewhere down the list. But his numbers, and of course LSU had started a website, thatkidjaden.com, to promote him to win the Heisman. Cody Worsham's doing a great job, and others are putting out all the stats, comparing him to the other quarterbacks, comparing him to past Heisman winners, and the numbers speak for themselves. Personally, I don't vote on the Heisman. If I did, I would vote for Jaden Daniels, not just because I live in Baton Rouge and I've seen basically every snap he's taken this year, but I think he's the best college football player in America.
The problem is that the Heisman votes don't have to be in until after the championship games. Now, a lot of the Heisman voters normally do on a traditional year. At least half the votes are in before the championship games, and I'm sure some of the Heisman voters intentionally do that. They have the mindset of this is a regular season award. We're not, if we've got a team playing 12 games, it's not the same as if Jaden Daniels had a 13th game. His numbers would look different. I do believe Bo Nix is going to win the Heisman. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope Jaden Daniels does win it. I think Bo Nix has played fantastic, and he's got, two big giant statistics on his side. He has more passing yards, and he's got the completion percentage is, through the roof, nearly 80%. And his team, I think, is better than Washington. I expect that they're going to win, and they're going to avenge the loss, and they're going to be the Pac-12 champion, and they're going to be in the conversation for the playoffs. I just think that's just too much to overcome. But Jaden Daniels deserves it. We know that he's had the highest passing efficiency of any quarterback that's ever won a Heisman Trophy, higher than any of them ever before. He's got, 8 out of every 10 stats out there in his favor. But I do believe that when you're 9-3, that versus a guy that's potentially going to go 12-1 and be a conference champion and maybe backdoor into the playoffs, it's going to be held against them, right or wrong. It's going to be held against them. And by the way, it's not like Bo Nix played terrible. He's played fantastic. So that's where I think it's going to go. Jaden Daniels had a good game. I think he needed to have a great game to solidify, because he's sitting there watching Bo run Atari numbers over there in Oregon.
Well, yeah, it's supposed to go to the best player in America, but you said there are humans that vote. I was wrong the other day. There's about 900 people that vote. I thought it was about 800. I read something, but it's more like a couple of people over 900. And, all those, it's humans. So the factors of what you said, a possible conference champion or a 12-1 team versus, even if they're 11-2, and then you got, LSU that lost 3 games, and, it's just going to be, he lost 3 games to good teams, but still it's 3 losses. And I know, LSU's made the point that other quarterbacks have won it with 3 losses, okay? But it's, every year is different, and we'll see what the voters do. I think he should win it. I hope he wins it, because Hunter McCann and I stand to make a few coins if he wins it on some high odds we bet on a few weeks ago that he would win it. So me and Hunter are pulling for Jaden and hoping that you're wrong.
Yeah, well, I think everybody in Louisiana is pulling for Jaden, no question about it. All right, let's talk a little bit here about the coaching carousel that's going on in college football. You mentioned the LSU defense coordinator, who probably is going to be changed. By the way, Jack Del Rio, a name. There's 2 names that are synonymous with LSU's coaching jobs over the last 20 years: Jack Del Rio and Jimbo Fisher. Jack Del Rio got fired last week in the NFL, defensive coordinator. Who knows? Maybe he ends up in Baton Rouge. Well, his name will pop up for sure, always does. And then Jimbo Fisher's, of course, we know he's out, but he's not going to coach ever again. He's just going to sit back and collect his coin. Oh, I don't think. Why would he, Tom?
I don't mean head coach. I mean,
why would you?
Well, I mean
you have more money than God. You can go be and do whatever you want. If what he wants to do is kiss 17-year-old kids' asses and try to recruit them, and then don't yell too hard because they might go in the transfer portal, and have somebody tell you that your offense is outdated, although 3 years ago it wasn't, and all that kind of, like, why put yourself through that? If you go buy a ranch, go do whatever you want, travel the world, be a consultant, be on television, whatever the case may be. Why would you put yourself and especially to be an assistant coach, Tommy, to have somebody tell you what to do and you got $300 million in the bank? I don't think we're see him coaching again.
But is it in his blood? I clearly think he takes a year off, and then maybe next, July, somebody says, "Hey, you want to be an analyst? You want to be on TV? Whatever." I mean, why?
But you said there's a difference. There's a difference between consulting or an analyst where they send you some video through the computer and you sit in your office and you break down, and you write some notes and you send it back. Like, there's a difference between that and coaching. I'm talking about coaching, head coach, coordinator, where you got to go recruit 365 and you got to worry about class schedules and the quarterback's not watching his iPad. Like, forget all that, man. If I'm Jimbo Fisher, I'm like, man, I'm good. I got $200 million. I'm good.
Well, why is Mick Jagger still going on tour? I would think he's got enough money, but it's in his blood. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't know, and I don't know that he's the TV guy. You think of the personality that we've seen over the years, including his time in Baton Rouge, and I don't know that he's that guy that sits up there on TV. I'm like you. I would do nothing but 10 months. Just say, hey, let me just sit back, and then you can pick and choose. If something comes your way that you really, really like, you do it. If not, you say, wait another year. Or you just keep counting your money, and that's that.
Remember when John Gruden hung it up and he went to TV, but he always kept his foot in the coaching where he did his like QB camps, right? He'd vandalize tape for teams and for agents and all that. And, he'd have quarterbacks would come down and then people would pay him consultant fee to work with their guys. That's to me is the kind of thing, like have your passing academy, have your Jimbo Fisher prep camp, where you get the feel of coaching and you get the opportunity to do it a few times a year, but you're not committed to it 365, but yet you're still connected in every kind of way. I could see something like that because for decades he was considered a quarterback whisperer. He didn't just lose that in the last 2 years. All right, let's some of those coaches. All right, so A&M hired Mike Elko. He'd spent time there as an assistant under Fisher. I was surprised because of that. He's done well at Duke, and he was the ACC Coach of the Year last year in 22. But you would have thought maybe, Tommy, after spending hundreds of millions of dollars down the drain, that maybe they would have wanted to go in a different direction, just cut the tide from any Jimbo Fisher tree, but they didn't.
Well, somebody said this morning, the world has changed when Texas A&M hires Duke's coach, and it's in football, not basketball. Okay, A&M's really got to look in the mirror and realize they're not quite what they think they are in the big picture. Okay?
Right.
Might they get there one day? I don't know. Let it play out. But you bring back a guy who had good defenses a few years ago at A&M, but A&M's got money. They got the ability to recruit. They got a lot more resources than most schools, if not all schools. So be curious to see how that does work out.
A couple of notable changes, of course, right here in the state of Louisiana. Bobby Bowden, after 3 seasons, he's out as head coach. Not Bobby Bowden. Terry Bowden, Bobby's son, is out as the head coach at ULM after 3 years. They started off 2-0, and then they went into the tank, had some injuries and whatnot, and bad play at QB, and went 2-10. He's out. Tim Brando is very outspoken on social media about that decision. Tim's an alumnus of ULM, and he was very thought that wasn't the right move, and spells out his reasons why. You can go read that online. Stoops stays at Kentucky. Kentucky had a big win over Louisville, who was ranked in the top 10 in all the polls this past week. But he supposedly got a call and maybe turned down the job at Texas A&M. Very surprised by that decision right there, that Stoops stays at Kentucky instead of maybe going to A&M. Remember last year he turned down, I want to say maybe the Oklahoma job a couple of years ago. To stay at Kentucky proves to me that there's a handful of coaches out there that'll say, you know what, I'm making millions of dollars. I'm at a place I like. They're happy to have me. They're not going to get rid of me ever, because they're not going to get better than me. I'll just take my $5 million a year or whatever and stay here forever, as opposed to chasing bigger money elsewhere. But also with bigger money comes you can get fired after 2 or 3 years.
I also read that, they approached him about the job, and he acknowledged that. But then that the board of regents, or whatever they call the A&M board, wouldn't approve his hiring. So then he pulled out, one of those. They always pull out when they know that they're not going to get the job, but make it look good on paper. But no, I mean, again, if you Stoops, it's crazy to say this. You go over there, you get fired 3 years, and they're going to pay you. I mean, the Indiana coach is getting $20 million buyout when he got fired up there in Indiana. So I mean,
$20 million buyout at Indiana. That's unbelievable.
Ronnie, I go back to the late 90s. Jerry DiNardo and I doing radio together, talking a bunch. And Jim Donnan got fired at Georgia after going to 4 straight bowl games. Okay. And he got fired as head coach of Georgia football. And I remember Jerry and I were having lunch, and I'm like, man, if you're Donnan, you got to be kind of pissed off, huh? You go to 4 straight bowls and you get fired. He goes, Tommy, he's not pissed off. They owe him $4 million, which at the time was a big number. He said, he's going to adjust. He'll be all right. Well, fast forward to 2023, and you got, as of this morning, $118 million in buyouts. Coaches are going to get paid not to coach. So it's a crazy world, and it's all about money, and everybody thinks they can win. What are they, 130? FBS teams. I was going to look this up.
Yeah, 132 maybe something.
Yeah, 132. Only one of them wins the national championship, and as of today, only 4 go to the playoffs. Now that'll change to 12, which will be that coach that gets in as the 12th team in the playoff. Yeah, you can't fire that guy. You would think, but it's just craziness out there because everybody thinks they're going to win, and most are not. It's like I don't like Jim Harbaugh. I don't like Michigan, but his first 5 games against Ohio State, he was 0-5. Okay, and now look where he's at. Because they're all, the rumors about Ryan Day. Obviously, he's not going to A&M. They hired Elko. But Ryan Day, has lost 3 straight to Michigan. But he's won over 90% of his games. And, I mean, it's crazy. Some former players are saying he needs to be fired. Like, man, come on. Yeah. Dean Smith at North Carolina basketball had a losing record his first couple of years. John Wooden had a losing record at UCLA or a 500 record early in his career. Whatever happened to giving these guys time? Well, it's the money. It's the pressure from the alumni and the donors and the people that cough up the big bucks. It's the pressure to think, A&M, I mean, they can't win the West, much less win a national championship. And I know the West is going away, but, I mean, be a little more realistic in some cases for a lot of schools, not just A&M.
What's interesting is that Mike Elko at Duke with a basically 500 record in a couple of seasons or whatever over there, he's a better option than Stoops, who at Kentucky has done a really nice job and has a good pedigree and coach's tree and all that kind of stuff. Like Kentucky SEC proven winning commodity where A&M's got to think, well, I mean, if you can win at Kentucky, you can win at A&M, right? You go with the Duke guy. It's by the way, Oregon State's coach, of course, Oregon State doesn't have a conference anymore. Technically, they do. Them in Washington State or whatever in the Pac-12 twosome. But Oregon State coach is leaving to go to Michigan State, where he's originally from. So the Oregon State job is open. Thinking, obviously the Duke job is open. Syracuse job is open. Boise State job is open. These are just some of the bigger names of schools that are open at the moment. Houston, that's right, got rid of him. And then lastly, Jeff Lebby gets hired at Mississippi State. Mississippi State went with the coordinator that was at Oklahoma as their offense coordinator. Before that, he was with at Ole Miss as the offense coordinator with coach of Ole Miss. But how ironic is that Mississippi State hires a former Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss assistant, as their head coach? Those true Bulldog alumni are kind of, that's kind of oogie.
There's a couple of them that kind of like, see, Jason fires a question as, are there going to be any changes at LSU? Is basically what he's happening. He says he doesn't think it'll happen, and he thinks Perkins will go in the transfer portal if it doesn't happen. Your thoughts on that, Ronnie?
To me, they've got them. Well, I would think that they're going to make changes. I don't know how you can sit pat and justify what happened on defense this year. As the coach of the defense, you decide who plays, you coach up your players, you decide who you like in the portal and who's going to fit in your system. And by all measurements, it was a failure. And last year wasn't great either. So to me, it feels like it's not a fit. So we'll find out how much stroke Brian Kelly has, how loyal Brian Kelly is. But I would think they have to make a change. And as far as the Perkins thing goes, what we don't know is how much buy-in there is to this new style he's playing, right? Like, I mean, did he want to stay on the outside? And they said, no, we're going to move you to the inside. Like, we just don't know the inner workings of that. If Perkins has an agent, which they all do, and the agent is under the belief that this is what's best for the NFL draft for the future, because you're not going to play, rush end, at the NFL because you're too small. I mean, we don't know those kinds of conversations. And I would suspect that Perkins is not is playing a position that he's okay with, or they would probably try to keep him happy. So, We'll see. I would be surprised if he transfers because he's at the greatest, top 5 schools in the country. Where else is he going to transfer to unless Nick Saban met him at the midfield and said, "Hey, call me after. I know how to use you." Who knows?
Yeah, well, time will tell on that. And, I don't think there's any press conference plan with Brian Kelly as of right now. And, obviously SEC championship games this weekend that we focus on that. So, we'll just have to wait and see. Like you famously said, let it play out.
All right, TK, tell us about Court Street on the way today.
Well, Court Street Cafe, they got gift certificates over here. You can get them in any denomination. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week. Got some live music coming up this weekend. They've been very, very successful with that. Hit them up on Facebook and Instagram. Jason and the staff do a super job in Port Allen at Court Street Cafe.
All right, Tommy. We will be back on Wednesday morning for more Sports Shorts Daily. Until then, please like and share this video and have a great one. Thanks for watching Sports Shorts presented by LaBear's Casino.